Welcome everyone to the Cannabis Technologist. With me today is the sales manager of the Triminator named Gary Fass. Gary's based in Honolulu at a conference today. How are you doing today, Gary?
Doing great. Thanks for having me.
Well, I'm excited to do this interview. How is the weather down in Honolulu?
81.
Oh gosh.
Perfect.
That doesn't suck. Well, I'm interested in this interview from an educational perspective because there's much about the whole auto trimming process that I'm reasonably ignorant of. So why don't we start high level?
Okay.
Let's talk about the driving force behind the creation of the Triminator.
Well, the Triminator started because, we're based in Northern California. And like any business, we started it based on needs of our future and clients there in Northern California that were growing large marijuana crops, and they needed a way to handle it, and they needed a way to handle it quickly, in the fall to where they could process it quickly and have it ready for winter and not worry about it molding or spending excessive amounts of money on hand trimming with labor costs and such. So it started just strictly based on need in Northern California.
Okay. Now, was it designed by Arnold Schwarzenegger in the distant future, sent back through time to destroy harvesting inefficiency? Any relation there to that?
No relation there. But
no Terminator.
Yeah, at the time, 10 years ago or so, there were a couple trim machines on the market, and the founder of our company, had a metal fabrication shop in Northern California. So people started bringing these machines in and saying, hey, I need this fixed. I bought it. It's from China. These types of stories. And so he started, fixing their machines, and then eventually started building ones that were much better and that were, made in Northern California. And, so that was our first Triminator. And it came out about 7 or 8 years ago, and we really haven't changed the design since on that particular machine.
Okay. Well, let's talk a little bit about that. Walk us through the different kinds of trim machines that you offer, and then the benefit of automation versus hand trim.
Sure. I'll just go over the machines real quick, and then we can kind of talk about the trim machines. Right now, we have 4. And like I said, we started out with our wet machine. It was the only machine on the market, and still is, that has automated, spray wand that actually keeps the reel wet and keeps the whole process lubricated with water throughout your trimming. So it keeps the blades from, building up lots of material, and it alleviates, a lot of problems. You don't have to use any lubrication with those machines. So that's the wet machine. And then about 2 years ago, we came out with the dry machine. And in that process, we built a whole new design with a lot of different patents. We decided we didn't want to have a dry trimming drum in our wet machine like some of our other competitors were doing. So we set out to build a completely new design, a new trim machine, and it's been a very, very successful machine. About a year later, we came out with the Triminator Mini, another dry trimmer based on our success with our other dry trimmer, and it's a tabletop model. So it's a very low-cost, entry-level machine for home growers, but we do have some commercial growers that buy it just because it's such a great, more compact machine. But it's a very good entry-level machine for folks, and also no lubricants needed, and all the other features that we have, made in the U.S. and all the the ability to power wash it. It's a very commercially built sound machine. So those are our 3 dry trimmers and our wet trimmer that we have currently.
Can you touch quickly on the difference between wet and dry trimming? What are the implications there?
Yeah, like wet trimming was how it all started. All the original trimmers were all wet trimmers, and I think that there's several advantages to wet trimming in a sense that if you're handling a really, really large crop, it's a really efficient way to do it because you can trim a lot, and then your leaf, just you can put it in the freezer, or you can dry the leaf separately, and you can focus on the flower. So back especially when that was the main focus, was focusing on the flower. Wet trimmers were hugely successful right off the bat for Northern California farmers and things like that. Years later, when people started to want dry trimming, because when they hand trim, they noticed that they were able to cure their product for longer. It sometimes had a different terpene profile, or a better bag appeal when it was dry trimmed, or hand, or dry cured. So when they started building dry trimmers, it was sort of speaking to that. So now you can still dry cure it. You can do all the things that you do when you like to hand trim, but now you have a machine that can handle it once it's been dry. And so dry trimming was a fairly new technology, but now it's become almost the preferred way. And one of the main reasons that is because the dry trim is much more, you can utilize it much more for making concentrates and extracts and different types of hash, basically. So that's another reason why dry trimming has become popular. But there's still those two schools of thought out there. Some people think that wet trimming is better because it has higher trichome retention, and some people will say dry trimming is better because it has higher terpene retention. So it kind of depends on what your goal is. And when we came out recently with our Triminator XL, which is the machine that I did leave out there. And that sort of has been the game changer, because it'll trim up to 60 pounds an hour. So it's the first dry trimmer on the market that trims as fast as a wet trimmer dry. So, and that machine only came out in October. So yeah, so that's kind of, I don't know if that answers your questions, but it's kind of like, places in Canada where they've been wet trimming forever, they're still wet trimming. So a lot of them haven't really made the change to dry trimming. And same thing with a lot of farmers in different areas like that I work in, like Michigan and California. They're stuck on wet trimming, and they just don't want to change. So there's different schools of thought. So that's why we developed both, so that we can cater to both types of farmer, both types of cultivator.
Okay. And the benefits of automation over hand trim, I mean, I would think there'd be a big efficiency there, but can you touch on that real quickly?
Yeah, I mean, it's basically about saving labor costs, really. I mean, to pay someone to trim your flower, the average hand trimmer can do 1, maybe 2 pounds a day if they're really good. And, and you're talking about machines that'll do, our Mini can do, anywhere from 3 pounds an hour up to our Triminator XL, which you can do up to 60 pounds an hour. So it really, they really have great return on investment. But, people are very concerned about quality, and their farmers are very concerned that, hey, I took the time to grow this plant and I want it to represent, in the best way that it can. So I totally understand the reluctance to using machines, and it's really a learning curve. It's like once you've been exposed to it, it's not as scary as it was before. You know what I mean? Like, and I can honestly say, when someone tells me, hey, I only want to hand trim my product, I totally believe in hand trimming, I can literally look them in the eye and think to myself, I used to think that too. And so I don't argue with these people. And in fact, we make Triminator scissors. I mean, we sell hand scissors too for people who want to hand trim. So it's really not an argument for me. It's just for me, like, I just want to find a solution for them. Do they need the best scissors they can get, or do they need a trim machine? But I think, it's based on, again, it goes back to how we started. It's based on need. So, you either need a trim machine or you don't. You're either in the game where you have a lot of product that you need to process and get to market, or you don't in some senses. And there are markets where people are hand trimming and they're selling their product and they're doing good business. And sometimes, if it's not broke, don't fix it. But in other markets where it's very, very, very competitive and the price of the pound just keeps dropping, I mean, machine trimming is almost the rule, because, paying someone to hand trim is just going to take away all your profit. So.
Okay. Are you ever asked for any kind of calculated ROI on that front? It doesn't sound like it would be, because it is two different markets.
Yeah, we,
You
we
know,
have a couple different ROI white paper forms that we can sort of, help people understand what the return on investment is. But you got to figure
okay.
a minimum of 200 per pound to have a product hand trimmed. You know what I mean? So that tells you right there,
Uh-huh.
once you're saving $100 a pound or $200 a pound, it doesn't take very many pounds to pay off your machine.
No,
You
it wouldn't
start.
go very quickly.
Yeah, So they have really good return on investment. The other thing I tell people a lot is that if you're really concerned about using a trim machine, which is totally understandable, just use it. You can use it in a real conservative way. So in other words, like if the average batch trims in 10 minutes, and I like to trim my product for 10 minutes, and I think it looks great when it's done. But what if you just put it in the machine for 5 minutes and finished it by hand, and you'd still save half your labor, and it's still a hand trimmed product at that point, but you're just using the machine to just get off that initial, trim or get off those big leaves. And then you can do the hand trimming if you want to and still save yourself half your day, half your labor. So there's different ways to get
Sure.
to
So,
use the machines. Some people may want to just use it on the lower part of their plants. They may want to hand trim their colas and have a top shelf product with all their colas. And that's great, if that's what they want to do. So it's just a tool, there's different ways to use it.
yeah,
And just because you have a trim machine doesn't mean that your product is going to be worse than the guy down the street. It just depends on how you use it.
very interesting. So it's basically it's not an all or nothing thing. It's a tool.
Absolutely not.
Um,
It's a tool. I
yeah,
mean, I have
yeah.
plenty of customers who use the machines who also hand trimmed some of their other strains or something that they want to take to a cup, if they want to really. But when the market is what it is, when you're getting, I mean, we're low down to, when you're down, anytime you're below $1,000 a pound, you need to start thinking about how you're going to process that at the lowest cost possible. Because if the ceiling is $1,000 a pound and 200 of that is hand trimming, then that doesn't
Yeah.
make any sense for your business. So
No.
it's a business like anything else. Unfortunately, we like to get romantic about it, but it's a business. So it's different than if you're growing at home for yourself and you're just trying to get the best quality to show off to your friends. That's a whole different thing.
Yeah. Understood.
I was going to say, like, one of the things I was thinking is, like, a lot of, you got to remember too, a lot of the flour that's grown nowadays is grown for stuff like pre-rolls, edibles, you know, concentrates, extracts and all these things. And a lot of that is done now with flour, whereas it used to be done with trim or this and that. But, if you have a lot of my customers will buy these machines and, who are actually processors. They're processing flour. So they'll buy bulk flour, they'll process it, they'll make their extract products or their edibles. So they're not actually, they may not actually be growers. They might just be processors. So those
Okay.
people, are really interested in our machines too. And like people like short path distillation is a big thing right now. And I have a customer in Seattle that does high quality like alcohol extractions. But he still, when he gets product to utilize, he trims it first. He runs it through the trim machine so he can get like a real high quality flour run, and then he can use the trim for other products. So, it's a harvesting and separating tool. It's a trimmer. It's a lot of things.
So with new testing regulations, how large of an issue are hydrocarbon lubricants used in most trimmers apparently? And can these chemicals potentially contaminate crops?
Absolutely. I mean, I'm not I don't work for a lab, but we have been adamant about the no lube system, on all of our machines since day one, and it's something that I'm really proud of. And I know for a fact that when I used to work, on a farm in Southern Oregon, we used to literally use PAM coating and spray it on the machines, and it was another, one of our competitors. And so, that's done out there. I know it's done less and less now that lab testing is going on, but yeah, and you can use hemp oil. You can use different things that won't show up on tests or be a little more friendly to your product. But I guess my I can sleep well at night knowing that our products are completely lubricant free and that the customers don't need to use lubricants. And that's one of the things I'm most proud of about our product. So it can be a quality thing. It can be, something that come up on lab tests. But even if you're growing it for your own personal medicine, which is how this all started, medical, you don't want lubricants on your product or on your medicine. So it's a big deal, no matter how you look at it. But yeah, to your point, I mean, there is product on the market that will get tested out because of that contamination. Just the same as pesticides or any other thing that would exclude your product from hitting the market. That's one of them.
So Gary, talk to me about scale. What is the typical grow operation size for Triminator clients?
That's one of the things I like the best is we get to work with, all different size growers, everybody from the home grower trying to grow their own medicine up to the, commercial grower. I don't care, what kind of a grower you are. We have something for your needs. And, that's why we have the Triminator Mini. It's a great entry-level machine for someone who even for someone who has a couple lights that just doesn't want to trim their own flowers. So we have that. And, there's even options for people to rent machines out there. We have different Triminator dealers that have rentals. So that's a good way for a small grower to, to be able to afford to do that and not have to hand trim. But, we've got people who call us who just, have carpal tunnel and they just don't want to hand trim anymore, and they may just have one light. So it doesn't matter, how big you are, we've got something to address your needs, and we're just trying to help people harvest their flowers. So, and with the rosin presses too, that just kind of has opened up a whole new market for us. So we have that clientele now too. So.
Okay. So you kind of touched on some of this, but I wanted to ask it in a more direct way. In your experience, because you've been with the Triminator for a while now, what tends to be the biggest hurdle to overcome with Go Operations decision? Do we automate or not? Does it get down to typically cost versus quality dynamic? Is that kind of the precipice?
Yeah, I mean, because we're working in so many different markets, especially what I've noticed over the last few years is that, when a market hits, $1,000 a pound or below, let's say, that's when people really start looking at ways to cut their costs and figuring out how can we automate this. Unfortunately, in black market days, things were more lucrative, and people could afford to hand trim. People could afford to do a lot of things that are hard to do once the price of the pound drops. So, you got to look at your labor costs, and it's going to cost you a minimum of $200 per pound to trim by hand. So as soon as that becomes like 20% of your costs, that's a big number for people. So, it's a business like anything else. Unfortunately, these are farmers trying to make money off a crop.
In regards to the Triminator rosin press, can we talk about the benefits of extracting cannabinoids and terpenes from the cannabis flower using heat and pressure at the lowest temperature possible?
Wow, yeah, there's a lot said there.
Right.
One thing is there's a difference, between, a concentrate and an extract. And so in that definition, there's a lot of benefits. So in other words, like most states that have rec, like Oregon, for example, they consider rosin a concentrate. So therefore, it doesn't have a lot of the, regulations and loopholes and things to jump through when you're trying to set up an operation. It's a lot easier to do it if you're just sticking to concentrates than if you want to go to extracts. You have to, jump a whole bunch more hoops to make that happen. And just, that being said, you're not dealing with volatile chemicals or, a lot of the danger that you're dealing with when you're doing other types of extractions with butane or alcohol or CO2. So rosin has a lot of benefits, not only to the manufacturer, the person processing that product, but also to the end user, because they don't have to, worry about any residual chemicals in their product, or it's a much cleaner, type concentrate or or hash.
Well, Gary, let's talk a little bit about the future. Does the Triminator, what does 2018 look like? What does the auto trimming space look like for cannabis, and what's ahead for you guys?
I feel like we are going to be we are going to be sort of catering to much larger growers in the future, and that's sort of happening. We still are going to be catering to home growers in markets where it allows that, like Oregon, California, Washington's working on a bill for home grow legislation right now. So we're still going to be, working with all types of growers, but I think the larger scale growers are going to continue to get a little bit bigger. So we're going to have to focus on new innovation, and that's really the main thing that drives our company is innovation. So we're always working on something new. We always have something in our hip pocket. One thing about us is we don't, stick to, release dates or sales promotions or, that kind of stuff. We're focused on the innovation. So when it's ready, it'll be released, and we will come out with some new products. I don't know if it'll be this year or next year, but we are definitely working on some very nice new products. So they'll be coming.
I can see that. Really appreciate this discussion we just had, Gary. I'd like to tell our users where they can go if they want to learn more about the Triminator, auto trimming, so on and so forth. Where would you send them?
Definitely the Triminator website. We have a growing YouTube page that we're adding videos to all the time. I would follow us on Instagram. The Triminator Instagram official page. My Instagram page is Grower to Grower, and it's promoting different growers and different innovations out there in the industry.
Thanks so much, Gary. I really appreciate the education. I kind of learned a lot on this one, and we'll be watching you guys in the future.
Thanks a lot, Robert. Appreciate it.
Enjoy the weather down there, Gary.
Thank you.
That's it, everyone. See you next time.